Welcome back, everyone, to the podcast for today. So, my guest today is Jacob, and I'll give a little bit of a background on how we met. It's kind of random, but not. I probably posted something on Threads. Started following me there, messaged me. I was in Turkey, and you sent me a DM like, "Hey, I'd like to connect, talk about doing a podcast recording." Um, saw your stuff, whatever, whatever, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm out of the country right now, so I'll get back to you when I get back. And once I got back, it took me a couple weeks to get back to you because I had to do a little bit of recovery. Um, and here we are. So now I'll let you just go ahead and introduce yourself, whatever feels good for you to talk about.
All right, here we are. Great. Um, so my name is Jacob. I am from Slovenia originally, which is actually where I'm at right now. And I've had I'm gonna say a pretty interesting journey and pretty interesting path, which is why I'm here, talking about it. I started with my journey when I was about 13 years old. When I was about 10, I had a chronic skin condition, and at 13 years old, I was just like covered in eczema, scratching myself, bleeding. My mom made me cotton gloves so I wouldn't bleed when I woke up. And at some point, I got really deep into just like reading and really reading as a form of escape, not because I was enjoying it, but because I wasn't enjoying anything else. So it was like a lot of darkness in my mind and a lot of depression. And at some point, I found this one book that was talking about medicinal plants, and the last chapter of the book talked about self-hypnosis. So at 13 years old, I ended up deciding that I'm going to start hypnotizing myself just to put myself to sleep because I also developed insomnia at the same time. And I made a couple of meditation tapes or self-hypnosis tapes. I ended up listening to it, and it really calmed me down. So I started learning more about hypnosis and what else is possible through that. And fast forward a couple of months, I was reading books on meditation, Zen Buddhism, and ended up meditating for a couple of hours every day. And within a couple of months, my skin disease actually went away. And that really made me a very angry teenager because
Did
because
it went away?
what's that?
Did it went away?
The fact that it went away after 3 years of doctors not being able to fix it and spending more times at doctors than I did in school. And then I meditated my way out of it. And suddenly I'm like, what else do we not know? And how fucked up is the
Mm.
system? So just looked at the system and I looked at school and I was like, I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want to be a part of anything here. So at 14, 15, I ended up planning my escape and had all these grandiose dreams of traveling the world and like doing all these epic things and starting my business and getting really rich really quickly and then just like living the lifestyle. And when I was 18, I left Slovenia. It was a total shit show, also how I left. But basically, within a period of like probably 2 to 3 months, I ended up homeless and ended up picking up these odd jobs from construction to working in party hostels and selling little trips for commissions and making bare minimum. I remember one of my rock bottoms was with my best friends. We were living in a hotel in Budapest, in a hostel in Budapest. It was like a party hostel. And we put all the money we had, which was like the equivalent of like $7, onto the table and played poker with it. And we won, made probably about like $30, and that was our food for over a week. So that was kind of like the entryway into a very interesting life. And from then just ended up really seeking and really looking at like where do I find what I'm looking for and what it is that I'm really looking for, like feeding my mind, personal development, self-help, like listening to all the seminars of Tony Robbins and Joe Dispenza that I could get my hands on for like since I was 14 till I was like 18, so like solid 4 or 5 years. So I was like, yeah, I know that that is out there. I just don't know how to get there. So I ended up putting myself in a lot of really extreme situations, just looking for that community and that sense of what I knew was possible. So ended up in Australia working all these jobs around Europe and then eventually in India studying yoga. specifically focused on Jnana Yoga, the yoga of knowledge, and Advaita Vedanta, the non-dual traditions, and then went to the Amazon, lived with indigenous people, ended up sitting in dozens, if not hundreds, of plant medicine ceremonies across the period of like 2 to 3 years. Moved to
So did
Mexico.
you, when you sat in the ceremonies, did you partake every time?
Yes.
Okay.
There was a handful of ceremonies that I was sitting in that I was not partaking.
Okay.
Majority of the time I was a participant as well. But basically, I ask myself a wide question, right? I see the world through the lens of like, we either have narrow questions or we have wide questions. The narrow questions are like, why is this happening to me? Or like, how do I fix this? The wide questions are like, what is trying to emerge from this? What else is possible that I'm not seeing, right? We just step a step back instead of like the victim me or the rescuer me or the persecutor me. We step back and we're like the witness, and then you ask like, what is life actually trying to give here? So when I became a yoga teacher, I asked myself a very wide question, which was not how do I make money as a yoga teacher, which I now know is very rare. But instead, I asked myself a question of like, how do I use this newfound skill so that it serves my life for many, many years and decades to come? So, like, the biggest gift that I saw in that was the gift of trade, because yoga teachers are really highly sought after in like retreat centers. And I was like, I want to work in retreat centers. So I found myself volunteering positions in different retreat centers where plant medicine was. So that was like my entrance into the world of plant medicine. And then very quickly I became a facilitator of it as well. Um, so yeah, there was a couple of years where I was deep in the facilitation space, building retreat centers, supporting in like the development, facilitation, teaching yoga, running and managing retreat centers, building them. Um, and then moved to starting my own retreat company. And then for the last couple of years, I've been very deep in the world of somatics and coaching, and work with some world-renowned coaches, been mentored by a pioneer in somatics, and building a pretty successful business out of that as well.
That's fantastic. I gotta say, like, if I look at healing and like the healing journey, which I love the quote that Jeremiah shared in the challenge, which we'll get to, about how it's not about the healing journey, right? It's about fucking doing what you are meant to be doing and what you came here to do and healing along the way. Oh, that was so amazing. But it's like you've done several lifetimes worth of stuff so far, right? And that's it's so fucking incredible and it's so exciting. And when I look at my journey, I think of like what are like the top handful of things? Like if I had to tell someone like straight up off the street, like or someone I haven't seen in a couple decades, right? Like what have you done? Because I've met up with friends within the last year or so that I hadn't seen in 10 years. And they're like, when did you grow up? And I'm like, what do you mean? Right? What the fuck does that mean? When did I grow up? I don't know. I've been 18, over 18 for a long time. But it's like, no, like in the body of work, right? And I think for every person, there's a couple of key things that really stand out to them in their journey. And somatic exercise was one for me. Like I've done breath work and it can be a little too much sometimes if there's like a large group of people for me to handle. And I would love to get your perspective on that. Um, but somatics in general, I'm like, that's one of the things that I always point people to. I'm like, you got to get rid of some of that shit that your body is just clinging on to. So let's just talk about somatics in general. Like drop some knowledge on the people because it's not I don't think it's talked about enough and it's well enough known yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna argue that one. I'm gonna say that it's talked a little bit too much about, but not very properly.
Oh, okay, perfect.
It's a very like kind of neo-pop psychology word right now, somatics, and everything is somatic, right? You've got somatic breathwork and somatic dance and somatic whatever. Somatic basically just means body, so it doesn't make sense in order to put it literally in front of everything. Um, but anyway, the way I use the word somatics in this particular case is using the body as a portal to go deeper into the traumatic imprints. Um, which means that, our bodies are constantly trying to tell us something. So when you get sick or when you have pain or when you get triggered, whatever it is, there's going to be like markers inside of your body. It's like the clenching of the jaw or like the tightening of the chest or like, oh, like this heaviness in your shoulders, whatever that is. And if you pay attention to that and listen well enough, it normally takes you into the memory. It takes you into the memory of something that happened when you were a child. So, for example, if I work with a lot of people who are making a lot of money as well. And there's a thing around money. Majority of the people have some sort of like traumatic imprints around money, right? Because it's a big thing. I know it was in my life, for example, like moving through a period of homelessness as well. I was walking down the street the other day in Lisbon, Portugal, and I remember just walking through the city, and at some point it was just like I noticed this tightening happening in my body. And I was just observing it, right? I'm very trained in this, so I'm just trained to observe. So I'm observing the tightening in the body, and suddenly the narrative comes up, which is like, where am I gonna sleep tonight? What am I gonna eat? Like where am I gonna sleep? And I'm like, I have made so much money that this is not a realistic thought. I
Hmm.
have an Airbnb like 10 minutes walk away from here. Like this is clearly not like
It's not practical, right?
not a practical thought. It's not a real thought. But I was able to like trace it back enough to when I was homeless, where I was like literally like in these bigger cities and I was just wondering like, oh, what's gonna happen today? Like this pure, clear survival, right? And for a majority of the people that I work with, it's around money and it's around relationships. In relationships, especially like until you heal your relationship with your parents, every relationship will be about your parents, right? So it's also like when you're arguing with a partner and they say something that really triggers you, or they don't pay attention to you in a certain way, or they don't speak your love language, then suddenly there might be a reaction in the body. And if you do some form of somatic work that actually takes you with your mind as well, with your psyche, into those imprints, you're often able to resolve that. You're often coming into the memory of, for example, when your parents weren't there, when you needed them, or when your dad yelled at you when you tried to do something nice, or when you messed up and you were told to shut up and go to your room. Or in some cases, when there was like, for example, rape or molestation or abuse happening, and some people come to their parents and they want to tell them about it, and they get invalidated in their story. It's just like re-traumatizing, right? And then all
Hmm.
of that comes back in all these distorted ways, and the body, we can use body as a portal to go into it.
That's fantastic. So, and this brings up a good point too. Because if you look at like energy work and energy healing, right? Hands on or hands off, it's so interesting to me because sometimes people will say that you need to journal afterwards and you need to go into the memory and you need to blah 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 blah. I'm kind of split on this. Like, I think there are times and cases where it's good to know and it's good to go into, but I don't think that it's always necessary. So I would love to talk about your perspective on that because I know I've done some Reiki healing sessions lately and there's like journal prompts to do afterwards and I'm like, you just cleared the shit. Like, why do I need to why do I need to go and journal about stuff, right? So I would love to hear what you in any facet, like just what's coming to you with that.
Yeah, there's two, the way I see there's two branches of personal development. One is this kind of like rah-rah motivational personal development, which is just like kind of like suck it up and keep going, right? And just like vision and like if you don't think about your emotions, they're not there kind of thing, and let's
Mm.
just be high performers, which is very popular amongst most men. Um,
And a lot of women.
and a lot of women, and like specifically like corporate settings, right? It's like the preferred way of being in personal development. And then in the on the other side, there's like stuff that came through like Sigmund Freud's work, which is a whole nother topic I can nerd out about, right? We had like three really big founders of modern psychology, which was Adler, Freud, and Jung. And Jung was focusing on the archetypes and the psyche and the collective unconscious and the dreams. Adler was focusing on there is the end to the therapy. once you achieve the goal and it gets validated by the community, that's the end of the therapy. Whereas Freud, the one who was the most connected in like the um, different institutions, and he spoke the language of like different institutions and hospitals and education, he was able to get more in, and he was the one that was working with like really neurotic, psychotic people. So basically, he developed his entire theory based on people who were fucked up. And he was also not the healthiest person from how I understand the history books. So we basically built this entire side of Western psychology based on somebody who was just studying people who were messed up, right? Not to say that anyone's like just inherently messed up, but that's kind of what came out of it, right? It's like you are inherently broken and you constantly need healing. And if you can't find what's wrong with you, then we're going to look at what's wrong with your mom and your dad. And if we can't find that enough there either, we're going to go deeper, you know? So it's constant just like ripping things apart and looking at more and looking at more past. And I feel like there's a branch of that that kind of got popularized more through Western psychology. So we've got this one that's just motivation, and then we've got this one that's just digging out the past. And the more you can talk about trauma, the more it's going to somehow be resolved, right? And I would say neither of them are really the most complete thing. So if we can go in the past enough that it informs us about how to be better in the future, I would say that's a winning formula. Because if you're focused on the future, but there's like stuff that you haven't fully processed yet, if you've stuffed down your anger and your grief and like haven't processed your last breakup and your dad dying and all of that, and like the house burning down when you were a kid, all of that is just gonna come out in all these weird, distorted ways. So this is useful when we can go back and bring this up on the surface, right? So that it gets processed, that it gets healed. But then I only talk about the past really when it's informing something, when it's either sharing a story that benefits other people, or when it's being served as an example of, you know, how to process a certain thing, or when it's just fun to share a story. But I noticed that I don't have big emotional things around most of my stories. I can tell you about the worst things that happened to me, and I feel nothing around it because it's been processed enough. If anything, I feel really grateful that things happened the way they did.
Let's talk about the to me.
Right.
Because I think this is the thing a lot of people are missing in life, right? From my opinion. Because when you make that shift, it changes everything.
Yeah.
So
I I say there's different stages of evolution and they're not necessarily linear. They're kind of like circular and like different in different stages or in different like parts of your life, let's say. But the first one is kind of like the victim stage where you're thinking through the lens of life is happening to me, right? So this person did that to me. And like she broke up with me, or like he broke up with me, or he was abusive to me, or she was abusive to me. And you see the lens through that, the world through that lens, and you make decisions from that space. I can't have a relationship with my dad because he was abusive to me. I can't have a relationship with my brother because he was mean to me. I can't be successful because I was born in Slovenia, right? So all of these are just kind of like victim beliefs. And then when we grow and we get into personal development and we realize that we're the creators, then we realize that life is happening because of us.
let's talk about how fucked that is when you first find that out, right? Like, I remember that when I first heard that, like, everything is happening for me, but everything is happening because of me. And I'm like, the fuck it is, right? Like, that's, I think most people's initial reaction of like, I didn't fucking ask for this. Well,
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting. It depends on how you want to look at it and like how deep you want to go in this. Um I can take this one much further, but yeah, I think majority of the people just aren't willing to let go of their victim stories, and that's why they're just like in their constant loops. It's you can't pull yourself out of it when you're always wanting to be a victim, and the victim being a victim does have a payoff, right? You
for
have your
sure.
payoffs. Like people empathize with you. They might treat you better. You might feel like you got more love or like more care or attention, depending on what your core needs are. If your core need is significant, can you make yourself victim enough that you're special, right? If your core need is like connection, can you make yourself victim enough that people love you more? So being a victim does solve a lot of needs, seemingly on the surface, right?
On the
Uh,
surface, yes.
yeah, when we dig deeper, we realize like we are the creators, and the reality is happening outside of us because of what we're creating from the inside. So if I keep generating these loops of scarcity, then I will be generating more scarcity. I don't see the opportunities that are around me because I look through the lens of scarcity. If I look through the lens of this world is a terrible place and we need to fight each other, then those are the people that I'm going to keep attracting. And I will attract some really incredible people, but my reticular activation system is not focused on those. It's just focused on what is wrong. So then the second stage I like to say is like the creator consciousness, where you're like, okay, yeah, I create the world. Like I create my reality. And it's a very interesting space to be because then you realize how much control you have over everything. But it's also a place where I see most people starting to be afraid of the shadow and like of the bad thoughts and the bad emotions. And they're like, oh, I can't go into those like denser space. And it can create what I've seen in the spiritual community, quite a lot of like spiritual ego and superiority complex, which is like, oh, get away from me with this bad energy,
Or
right?
the bypassing, right? Like spiritual bypassing is one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
Favorite things. The joke is like love and light, right?
Love and
Love and
light.
light.
Just love and light. We're just peace.
Yeah,
Love and light.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I
We
think, go
sorry,
ahead.
go.
No, you're
Um,
good.
yeah, and then I think at some point we begin to realize that, it's very like self-centered, like I am God version of the world. So I think the more we evolve, the more we realize that it's not happening to because of us, even it's happening for us. When we realize that like we can actually devote our lives to something bigger than ourselves, and we realize that there is a plan of some sort, and then we realize it's happening for us, and it's a much better place to be because then you look at everything and you can ask yourself a different question, which is like, what is this good for? And
Hmm.
but it's still very self-centered. So at some point we realize that it's not even happening for us, but it's happening for everyone else through us. And again, super beautiful place to be, where you're like, wow, my life is just life of service, right? And everything I've been through, like for example, I was robbed in Argentina and left in the middle of the desert. And that's like something that like I've learned so much through that I still share this story so that other people can learn from it. And I'm like, wow, that happened through me. It happened for me, through me, for other people, so that life keeps lifing itself. And I just get to be the conduit for life happening, right? So now I look at all the challenges and I'm like, wow, the biggest challenges are the biggest opportunities, not just for me, but because of how much I'm going to grow through them so that I can keep giving to life. And then the biggest realization that I've had on my journey was like, nothing really fucking means anything. Life is just happening. So like all of these stages of evolution are just choices that we make, and none of them really fucking mean anything. Life is just happening. And there's no meaning whatsoever to it, but the meaning that we attach to it, which is the absolute freedom. And then you can be like, oh, I can be a victim if I want to be. And there's nothing wrong with that, aside from the fact that I'll be unhappy. And then I can also be the creator. And there's nothing wrong with that when I'm in this phase of my life when I want to be creating. Right now in my business, I'm just like, I want to be the creator. I want to be somewhere between like the creator and service, right? And I'm just like, yeah, just fucking create. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because inherently, nothing really has any fucking meaning whatsoever. It's just the meaning we give it, right?
Yep. Yep. I love this. So, okay, we've talked about business, we've talked about spirituality, and we've already kind of talked about the spiritual community and how I think, I mean, there's a lot going on in the spiritual community right now, a lot of fucked stuff, and we'll get into some of it. But the thing I really want to talk about is money. Okay. So just the other day, there was someone that I have followed for years now. I highly respect them, still respect them. But in the content that they had put out, it was something about like the world is at we're at this choice point, right? And I believe that. I think like we're seeing the shakeups in every way possible. And it's like I look at it as like the shake up to wake up, right? We gotta create a lot of friction in order for people to change. And there were several points that they had made about just like everything that's going on, right? Like greed and different things like this. But they made this comment about like, oh, you've got people out there saying that, everyone can be a millionaire, or everyone can be a billionaire, or this is how you can, create money like this. And I was like, oh, that's interesting but it was from this negative slant of like, if you think like that, then you're part of the problem. And I was like, ooh, that's interesting. Because from my vantage point, and I can't wait to hear your perspective on this, but from my vantage point, like we live in a world of infinite possibility, right? There's possibility after possibility. Like there's things that we've never even dreamed up that we could never physically, our brain cannot physically process and comprehend and create all of the shit that could happen for us. And so if we believe this, then to me it's also counterintuitive to believe that everyone could be a millionaire, everyone could be a billionaire, right? Like infinite possibilities. And to me, I'm like, still operate in a society that takes money to do most things, right? Like even if you're going to go live off the grid, you're still going to have to, unless you're like really good at bartering or trading services and skills and things like that, you're pretty much going to have money for something at some point, right? So I'm like, until we like make this shift where, and the money is a whole different topic, right? But like energetically speaking, and all of these things. But I just find it so interesting that there are some people in the community that like want to demonize money, but then you also charge first your services. So like, let's talk about that. Like, I just help me make sense of it. Help me understand. What's your perspective?
I'll share my perspective. I don't know if I can help you understand that one. I think I need to see that exact pose to know the reference and then understand the reference. But yeah, we play many different levels, right? So I would say in terms of where the world is going, I would say capitalism is probably the biggest problem we have. And
Yeah,
the um the source of most of environmental issues and the economy is likely going to collapse. If we just look at like the printing of the money that's happening, like the inflation is pretty much inevitable, which is, the inflation like happening on a massive scale in US right now, but then also like on a smaller scale in Europe, and nobody's seeing it because they're just looking at the comparison with the dollar and they're like, oh, it's not as bad as the dollar. It doesn't mean that it's not really bad. Like in Slovenia right here, people are making, I think on average, I don't remember exactly how much it is, but I think on average about 1,000 something dollars a month, euros a month. And the groceries are getting increasingly more expensive, and the government takes 50% tax when you earn a certain amount of money, and it's not that big. And then you pay tax and VAT on top of all the groceries as well. So like at some point, like all of it just keeps you in the system. Everything's geared to keep you in the system.
and
But
it's so good. They were so
oh
good
no.
at creating
Oh,
everything to just keep looping you back in.
it's brilliant. It's
It
brilliant.
is. It is.
US at least it's geared towards people like starting their own businesses. You can start your LLC for like 100 or like 200 or something dollars. Whereas in Slovenia, if you start your LLC, it's like $7,500 on top of like people making only a thousand a month. So anyway, it's just bizarre. Where I'm getting with this is like capitalism is like fucked. And like there needs to be like a certain amount of increase in capital yearly for it to be able to like maintain. That means that the government literally needs to be printing money for the machine to keep working. So that all being said, um, you can't really avoid being in it. And it's a very big mirror of the hologram game that we're really playing. So, one way of looking at that is you can ask yourself a question, which is, how do I play this game so that I win it? And if you ask yourself that question, you're inevitably going to lose because the game is made for you to lose. You can't win the game because by playing the game, you automatically lose it. It's like a drama triangle in psychology, right? Wherever you are in the drama triangle, if you're a victim, a rescuer, a persecutor, you're still inside of the drama triangle. There's no right role in the drama triangle that you can take in the right moment in order for there to be a change. The only way to stop playing that relational game is to step out of it and set strong boundaries. The same with the game of money. Like the more money you make, the more you're gonna pay. The more taxes you're gonna make. If you try to like avoid taxes and play that game, it's going to be just like very stressful, really intense game, which you can also play if you want to. But I think more of the question that you can ask yourself to
I
widen
disagree with that last point, but that's okay. Let's go on.
the one with the taxes.
Hmm.
I'd love to dive in with you with that one. I've had quite a journey with that one. Um, Yeah, yeah. I mean, there are ways that you can like fully get around it. It's totally doable.
It's a journey though, like you said. It's a
It
journey.
is quite a journey, but it's also just where I'm going with this. Is that the more you keep playing the game of money in order to win, the more the board keeps expanding, right? And then you want more, and then you just want more, unless you're looking at it from the lens of like what money gives you in the moments that you're making it, not just at the moment of like the satisfaction of buying. Because how many people have we seen that like have made all the money in the world and avoided all the taxes in the world, and are still fucking unhappy as fuck.
Yes,
So,
yes.
so when
There's,
you play the game, it's geared to lose, and you lose it either by paying more or by just being extremely unhappy.
yeah.
So
Which
that
that point's perfectly illustrated in either, I can't remember if it's in the book Think and Grow Rich or if it's The Science of Getting Rich, but they talk about Carnegie and all the different big players, right? Who've developed the modern society here in the US. And then Bob Proctor ended up writing a book where he, in part of the beginning of this book, I think it's his book was You Were Born Rich. And it's talking about those key players from this book and how they ended up.
yeah.
None of them ended up well, but it's not because of money. It's because of what you're talking about, the inherent unhappiness within yourself.
Yeah. So where I'm going with this is there's nothing wrong with wanting to make a lot of money, but where are you wanting to make it from is the question that I would ask.
Mhm.
And if you play the game because you just purely love playing the game, then the game is going to keep rewarding you because you're not really playing it. You're getting out of the actual game, out of the traditional rules, right? The traditional rules are how much can I make? How can I climb the corporate ladder? How can I avoid the taxes? How can I have a bigger paycheck? How can I charge more for my coaching service, whatever that is? And that ultimately keeps you in the focus is wrong. The focus is on the amounts and like what the amounts give you and all of that instead of on the actual act of playing the game. So when you focus at it of like, oh, I wanna keep creating for the sake of creation. I wanna keep giving for the sake of service and how that feels to impact other people. I wanna keep doing that and I wanna keep making a lot of money because I just love making a lot of money. Then you just totally flip the script of the game and then you play the game for the sake of playing the game and not for the sake of winning. And you're no longer attached to the outcome either. Because if the game is like, let me see how much I can make, then when you don't make as much as you want, then you're losing the game. Whereas if
Right.
you're playing it for the sake of playing it, because you just want to play the game, it's a totally different experience.
Yeah. So, which I think that brings us to a fabulous point of you have a 30-day challenge coming up, or you have a challenge in the month of September that's coming up, and you're doing this challenge completely for free, which the just and we'll just talk about this because for everyone watching, I've signed up for the challenge. I'm really fucking stoked about it. I cannot wait. Like there's just from the boundaries alone that are being held for the container, I'm like, fuck yes, like this is it, right? Like this is because boundaries are huge. It's so huge because it's like boundaries, and I think that's one of the top things in my list of like on the journey, the things that have just changed the game. Setting boundaries and holding to your boundaries because that's your self-respect, right? And so like that piece of it was huge. But the fact that you guys are doing just from the standpoint of business, right? We'll just look at the logistics that go behind all of it, the number of calls you guys have scheduled in the month, and the number of opportunities for people to succeed. But that also means you and Jeremiah have to be available, right? You guys have to be there and be running calls, be available for questions and answers. And I'm sure there's a whole lot of other shit that goes on that I don't even have a clue about and that you guys are doing for free. So this is a perfect place to, I know, right? But once you've made a level of, or not a level of, but once you've made an amount of money where you can then give back in your work and what you do and be like, Psh, we're gonna go balls to the walls with you guys and we're gonna offer you a full fucking month's worth of our services. And it's not piddly bullshit either. It's like it's I'll just let you talk because I don't want to give away anything and whatever. So I'll just let you talk about it.
Yeah. So first of all, I think the main question again is like, why will one do what one does? Like, where is one coming from, right? And when Jeremiah and I started this project, Metamorphosis Collective, we have just recently partnered up. We met probably about 7, 8 months before that and ended up just having Zoom calls, getting to really know each other, what we're doing. There was like no idea what we're gonna do. And then at some point he called me and he was like, I have this idea. Do you want to partner 50-50 with me? And I was like, fuck yeah. It like met everything that I wanted. And the way he spoke about like
Oh, and
what
you're a generator or managen?
managing.
So the fuck yes
Um,
makes sense. Okay.
yeah. Um, Also like sacred authority. I just like
Exactly.
I had like a full body fuck yes, you know.
Hmm.
And yeah, and basically it was just like what are we gonna do here and how much are we gonna charge? And we were like, no, let's just prototype the first round. So we ran the whole program for free for 3 months and then gave about like 5, 6 months of free coaching after that as well. So basically about like 7, 8, 9, something like that months went into it for free, completely for free. And what that created is about 20 to 40 people in the first round basically were our biggest advocates. And we literally changed their lives. Like they still message us. There was a group of women in Portugal when we were in Portugal that invited us out for lunch or dinner. And they were like just the whole dinner telling us like how much we changed their lives. That's a year and a half later. And this is why we're doing it. This is just because we want to feel that. We like feeling that. We like seeing that. And we like seeing some things that work, right? So, on the other side, we were also prototyping. We were also doing something for the first time together. We were also like wanting to see how we work, how we can make it better. And I think business is essentially two things. It's innovation and marketing, right? So, like if you're constantly innovating, it's like giving people like the biggest value that they can ever have. So we're just looking at it this way. We're like, how can we give the most value we possibly can? Here, wherever we're at, whatever we're giving out, whatever it is, just let's give the most possible amount of value, right? So then we launched our first paid round, and then we launched our second paid round, and within the first two paid round, we made multiple six figures on it. And it was the point where we were like, wow, the demand is there. We are there. Like we know how to hold. We've gotten like so good at like this. We've gotten so good at what we do, and we're very different people, as you're gonna know, as you're gonna
I
see.
can already tell, yeah.
So we hold very different space inside of the container as well. And we were like, the way we work together is just, it's working, right? And we both bring very different aspect to it, right? I go much deeper into the space of somatics. I take people into deep processes through the body, deep traumatic releases. Like I guide them into like the most traumatic events. Jeremiah leads the dialogue, like the transformational dialogue, very much like ontological coaching. Really cut through bullshit style. So between the two of us, we realized, wow, there's so much value to give, right? And at some point we were like, we've got this high ticket container. Let's give out something for free as well and just see how many people can we bring in and play. How much change can we create? How many people can we bring in? Can we still hold our level of boundaries while we're playing this game? And more than anything, can we create a game that we like playing? If we really like coaching, why would we want to do less of it? If we really like coaching, why wouldn't we not just like coach 6 days a week, right? Our paid program is like 5 to 6 days a week. Um, so yeah, we decided to create a free challenge. It was in January this year. I think we decided in December, we rolled it out. We had 400 women sign up. About 150 made it into our platform. About half of them dropped out throughout the challenge because we just kept on rigorously holding the boundaries and removing them as the time went on. And out of those, I think about like 50, 60, 70 that made it all the way through, they are still messaging us how much their lives got changed. And that's the reason why we do it. It's because we haven't seen anybody in the personal development industry giving this much away, even inside of the paid programs. Like we've had people inside of the last round that said that they received more than paying over $200,000 for different coaches and healers. Uh,
Hmm.
and that's just something that we keep hearing is because not a lot of people hold the level of boundaries and containment and like the actual showing up than we do. So we created a game that we like playing and we just keep playing it. And that's basically what we love doing. And that's why we keep doing it. So what's going to happen in September in the challenge is I'm not really going to go into the topics because that's
Yeah.
also is the mystery.
Yeah.
But as a part of the challenge, what I can say is that it's going to be some of the deepest work than that majority of the people have ever done.
And this is fantastic. This is why I'm like so excited for it. Like I'm telling you, the boundaries is like I can see where some people would look at the level that you're holding at and be like, the fuck is their problem?
Uh-huh.
Right? Like where's the leniency? Where's the leeway? But on the other end, just like just like you say, like if you're gonna feel safe in a situation, you have to know that you're protected, right? Boundaries are the protection, period.
Mhm.
So if they're
Period.
not held and they're not held completely, because it's black and white, right? To me, it's very black and white, and I love that. I used to be told in my corporate career, I was told that I needed to find my gray by HR. And I was like, no, y'all have policies that are pretty freaking clear, but you want me to find gray within a policy? Like that's not how it's written, right? And that's exactly what's happening here, that's probably part of the reason why I love it so much, right? But I'm super excited for the level of work that's going to be done and the amount, like you said, the amount of lives that are going to be transformed. Because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, if we're not helping other people, what the fuck are we doing?
Yep. And you know the way you see it and the way you're looking at it, of course, not everyone sees it that way.
For
But we
sure.
created a game that we like playing, and we just don't want to fuck with people who just don't want to play that game, right?
Yeah.
I see majority of the coaches out there are like trying to get everyone through the door. So they're like, how many people can I sign up, right? For us, it's like, no, we created a game we genuinely enjoy playing, and it's only fun to play it with people who are actually playing it too. So if we keep having these low level conversations about, um, like you need to show up on time on a Zoom call. Like I don't want to spend like half of the fucking Zoom call waiting for people to show up, having their cameras off. Like I work in some other containers, I've worked in other spaces where that keeps happening. It's not what I like. Like I can take people deep within the first 10 minutes of a somatic session because they feel safe enough. But I can't do it if people are coming in and out of the call, walking around, having their cameras off. So if we have to have the conversation about like you were late on the call, why are you not allowed on the call? Then you have nothing to do there, right? So and then there's people like you that it just clicks for them and they're like, okay, yeah, like wow, finally I can feel safe in this.
Yeah,
And
and it's integrity too, right? Integrity with your word. And
yeah.
people don't like honesty and integrity are two of my pillars, right? And it's like, but where you find, and I think this is part of the journey, is like where you find yourself being dishonest, you're like, ooh, let's play in that, right? Let's
Uh-huh.
find out what's there, what's deeper in that space that I don't want to look at, or like I'm calling myself even higher, right? I'm calling myself to the carpet in order to figure out, like, okay, honesty and integrity. To me, if you're out of integrity anytime you're being dishonest, right? So it's like, oh, I'm violating my own pillars. So let's take a look at that, right? And for you
Mhm.
guys to, like I said, to hold such a high fucking standard, like just like you're saying, like a lot of coaches are they're just trying to get a bunch of people in. They could be the right people, they could be the wrong people, they could be people that they should never have any interaction with. And it's
Mhm.
and I'm sure we could spend a ton of time on why that is and that isn't. But yeah, it's just I just completely am in awe. Like on our first call, I was like, oh, he seems like so for everyone who's watching and doesn't know, we had a pre-call before this to you feel each other out and see if we actually wanted to be on a call together and do this recording. And I was like, man, it was like talking to a friend, like talking to someone that we literally just met, right? Like, we've had like two interactions, just met, and it was fucking solid. I'm like, all right, cool. There's a lot of stuff that we can talk about and we can go into and the fact that it just flows so easily. That's what I love the most about doing this kind of work, right? Whether it's just connecting with people or doing these, because I just do these recordings for fun, these podcasts for fun. But I just fucking love it. It's so cool to get to know people and to like go deeper. Um, all right, let's switch gears just a little bit. Kind of, kind of. You ready for it?
Ready?
You almost look like, "Well, I'm not sure what she's going to pull out of her ass this time." But so let's talk about some of the edges, I would say, with with the work, right? With development work and some of the we'll say like pockets of people because you shared with me on that call. I won't share it unless if you want to talk about it, that's fine. I won't share specifics. But you had interactions with people where they were highly triggered and it came back to specifics with you, right? And so I would love to talk about um, when you're in these containers, when you're doing the work that you do, and you're triggering people, right? Because it's kind of part of the fucking purpose. Um, what are some of the deepest places and or the most interesting? I'll reframe this a little bit. Like let's talk about paradigms. Let's talk about some of the paradigms, maybe is a better way to phrase it, that kind of come up in the work because I know there can be a lot. People look at us and they judge us, right? Like I've had the trip that I just went on to Turkey, right? People look at me and they see just like a regular chick and then we're on this trip. It's a spiritual sojourn. It's a pilgrimage. And then I'm dropping things that they're kind of looking at me like, the fuck did she come from? Like, who the fuck is this? Like they have no idea the depth of the work that I've done. And I don't look like your typical spiritual person, whatever the fuck that is, or whatever the fuck that means. Right. But so let's just talk about like the perceptions people have and how triggers can bring some of these things out and like navigating that and where that might lead.
Yeah, when within doing the work, within leading things, majority of the time I tell my clients, at least my one-on-one clients, like you will be fucking triggered by me at some point. Because my job is not to like coddle you. My job is not to make you feel warm and cozy all the time. I do sometimes when I take people in the depths of the trauma, right? And that's what's needed there. But majority of the time I'm just being brutally honest and direct. And that does bring up a lot with people where if you're in your victim consciousness and you're just like wanting to wallow in your story and I'm not validating you in it, I'm just gonna be like, hey, you're doing this and this. And that does trigger a lot of people. And we've just gotten really used to being very projected on. And we, at this point, really encourage it and allow it to be there. So I remember first few times that happened was just like very jarring to me as I was like, whoa, what is going on? Um, and then I just remember, I reminded myself of the moments where I was just like deeply projected on some of my mentors. And I remember one mentor of mine, he delivered way too much truth that I wasn't ready to hear at the time. And I remember when he basically just channeled for me, talked for about like an hour, told me things that I was just like mind blown by. And I remember I couldn't talk to anyone for a week. I was married at the time. I couldn't even talk to my ex-wife, my wife at the time. Um, and it took me a week to realize like how much that hit me. And then it took me another week to stop making him wrong because I felt like, oh, he's just trying to fuck with me and he's trying to like destroy my life and like like he's just like lying and like making shit up and trying to like manipulate my mind. And then at some point I was like, oh, wow, okay, like there was so much wisdom shared there. And just wasn't ready to hear it. And I realized that in order for me to really deeply hear what he's saying, I need to let go of some parts of my identity that I'm really strongly holding on to. But because I was so attached to my identity, I just kept fighting for him to be wrong. And really loving, epic human. He was just like embodiment of unconditional love, right? And just really helped me in that process too. And what I've learned through that is over time, just seeing how when people's identities are deeply challenged, if there's still a part of them that are wanting to hold on to that, then they normally fight back. And instead of being willing to listen to something that's different, they're like, no, how can I make this person wrong so that my identity stays validated? And this is where a lot of like projections tend to happen. And at this point, I just invited them in. So whenever there's like arguing or projections or anything like that that are directed at me, I just celebrate them because I know that there's deeper layers that are going to be unraveled through the process. But some people it takes them time, and some people they're very quick in it. So yeah, it's just the constant unraveling. And I believe triggers are like the biggest teachers for us. Because anytime that you're triggered by someone else's opinion or their way of living or their perspective on the world, that means that there's something unresolved inside of yourself. Because if you really like allowed the world to be as the world is, and you were able to see everyone's point of view, knowing that every behavior has a positive intent and everyone's doing the best they can with what they've got, and they're all probably just seeking the same thing as you are, which is like to be loved, to be safe, to be significant, etc. And because you really judge them or like disagree with them, it just means that you don't know enough about their side of the story. And yeah, I find these moments to always be so interesting because it opens up doors to the perception of so much more.
So how much, we'll call it hate, how much hate do you get for being a white male doing this kind of work?
Um, Not as much as you think. I have quite a lot of like different races clients actually quite a lot. There's a few times that I've got a little bit of a backlash for that, specifically like speaking to like white privilege, but it hasn't happened that often. It actually only happened twice.
Good. That's good. Because I think these things are interesting, right? Like we can move through the world in a way where that's like the lens, that's the perception. And I think that goes for a lot of different things, whether it's and this is a topic we talked about before, but like being trans or being homophobic or being a white male or being a white woman or being fill in the blank, right? There's all kinds of interesting shit that gets slapped onto you because you fit a physical demographic or because you have a specific gender or because you have a specific preference of I don't know, are you monogamous or do you believe in polygamy, right? Are you polyamorous? Like all of the different so I would love to get your like perspective and opinion on those different things as well.
On which one specifically?
Any of them that you wanted to speak to. I think polyamory is and monogamy. It's a hot topic, I feel like, in the spiritual community.
Yeah. I think you can do whatever you want to do as long as like you're just being honest about it, right? You mentioned integrity before. Integrity is you do what you say that you'll do within a time and manner within which you say you'll do it or you communicate otherwise, right? Honesty is like this is what's real inside of me, let me say that. And then there's like slabs of bullshit on top of that, which are like you know, I am doing this because this is the higher level of spiritual evolution, and all this like spiritual ego and superiority slapped on top of something that you shouldn't be doing so that you feel okay with doing it, which is where I think it gets like muddy waters. Um, I think if you want to play in the poly space, like it's super cool for probably some time in your evolution, and it's going to teach you a lot of things. But just like being honest about that, right? It's like, this is what I want to do, and you can just let yourself do it. Um, Personally, I am very much into monogamy. I do see that you can go much deeper in intimacy with one person than you go in, this type of exploration with like many. And also there's like nothing wrong with that. It's totally a choice. I can also say that I haven't seen many happy polyamorous couples. There's, from my experience, just from what I've seen, always a level of distortion that's present, or a level of trauma that is trying to be avoided, right? So it's like fearing intimacy and not wanting to be inside of a intimate monogamous container because of a traumatic imprint of like not feeling safe with one person, right? So then it's like, oh, it's more spiritual to be with many people, so that in that way avoiding actually going into like that traumatic imprint and clearing that. That being said, I have had periods between relationships and post relationships where I have seen those um, avoidant tendencies inside of myself too, because my heart got broken within like one relationship, and I was like, wow, I can't allow a person close right now. And I think those periods are totally normal, but it's just about like being honest and transparent about it, that can create safety within different dynamics. And then also, where you're coming from, right? When you're really like clear and not slapping on like spiritual language on top of it, like, whatever, whatever is present right now in the space. Um, yeah, it can, there's no judgment to it. It's just there's levels of like moral superiority, right? And it can go both
Mm,
ways, right? Even in the monogamy space, it's people just getting super judgmental of people who choose to be polyamorous. Like, if you're fully comfortable and confident in your decision, then just do it. You don't have to judge other people that are doing their own thing. And I think that for me, the main thing is just looking at where are we coming from and who are we being, instead of what are we doing.
that's fantastic. That's like, and that could be said of anything, right? Literally, it can be said of anything. It could be said of like sexual orientation. It could be said of, what types of relationships do you want to be involved in? It can be said of business practices. It can be said of, let's not talk about politics, but about politics, right? I don't care if we talk about politics, um but that space, right? Like I feel like there's anything that, especially if it's incredibly polarizing, then that's the case, right? And I just find it so fascinating. So I think that that takes us to a very interesting point of like, if we look at society right now and you're looking from one lens, you might be like, we are fucked. Like, we are giantly, but just supremely fucked right now. But I think if you look from another perspective, you can really say, are we fucked, or are we being given like the greatest fucking opportunity right now to learn, evolve, and change? So I'd love to
Yeah.
hear your perspective.
One thing that I just want to backtrack on the previous topic is, because I feel like I touched on it, but I don't feel like I went deep enough to like really show what I mean by that. So I have a client right now, actively working with her, and she was just telling me on our discovery call before we even started working, how unhappy she is in the business that she's doing. And basically it came to like, why not just close the business down? And she was like, okay, I'm gonna close my business down. And suddenly she just felt so free. And she was like, I've been struggling with depression, anxiety, all these things. And it's a healing business, right? It's a coaching service. And then suddenly she stops that, and it's like, wow, freedom, a sense of freedom. And that's really to show what happens when we're acting out of a wound and a traumatic imprint, as opposed to when we're acting from the creative space. So when I share about like the challenge, when I share about my high ticket program, when I share about my one-on-ones, I'm genuinely fucking stoked about it. I don't work for a couple of days and I miss it. I'm like, I want to have more clients. Like, I want to do calls every day. Sometimes I need to focus more on like the systems and operations so I don't
Like
get to
today.
every day, like today. Uh, but yeah, just like what lights me up is like really, seeing people's transformation, and like I get fueled by that. So I know I'm operating from a real genuine inspiration in this, right? But if you're not, if you're doing it because you feel like that's what you should be doing, you're always gonna hit a wall. And whenever something is happening from a wound, it's always going to generate more pain. And that's also like what I was sharing about money earlier, like the game of money is the game that's created from the wound, right? Like I don't have enough, I'm not worthy, therefore I need to make more because I equate my worth with utility and with how much money I make. Therefore, I need to make more, but you can't make enough to fill an empty void inside of yourself. So, um, that, and then like in terms of like also like sexuality, sexual orientation, are you just trying to sleep with multiple partners to feel significant or like to feel that you're worthy? Is that the play? Or you, for example, what we were talking about on the call, there's also sexual orientation. Sometimes it happens. I'm not gonna generalize that because I haven't spent enough time studying this to like fully deeply understand it, but I've seen it sometimes happen when people do process certain traumatic imprints, like, for example, molestation, and they realize that their sexual orientation was based on one sex not being safe. So they decided to go to the other sex. Or sometimes they felt like they were not safe to be a woman, so they decided to become a man. And it's a thing that happens in the psyche as like a snap, like split decision, and then it generates this entirely new identity. So again, when I'm saying like nothing is inherently wrong, nothing is inherently good or bad, but it's always good to come back to where you're coming from. So are you wanting to make a lot of money to fill that void inside of yourself? To find that love that you didn't get as a child, or just because you just genuinely fucking love making money? And it's like if you play the game of like, oh, I want to create more, I want to make more impact, I want to make you more money, it's a totally fucking good thing to do. And the same thing if you want to be polyamorous, right? Or if you want to whatever sex you choose to engage with, or whatever gender you choose to have, where is that coming from, right? And that would be like my main question and something I would deeply dig into. So anyway, I just wanted to like emphasize on that topic. Uh, and then in your last question, are we fucked? Um,
Are we fucked, or is it the greatest opportunity that we've ever been given?
I would say it's both. I would say it's both at the same time. There again, I keep coming back to nothing really has any meaning aside from what we attach to it. And if we choose to look at it like we're fucked, we are definitely fucked. We're not going into a very positive direction as, species. Um, However, that can bring up a lot of really epic things for us. So there's a spiritual layer of that, which is we're all just learning how to die well. The life doesn't have much meaning more than that. Um, it's just like series of experiences that teach us how to die well. And when we normalize that, it's like the biggest level of transitioning. It's when we learn to master that transition, we've mastered the whole spirituality. There's nothing more to it than that. So in essence, like whatever happens with humans as species is also a positive experience because of that, if it's seen that way. Um, and then, in terms of like politics and like society, I actually have no idea where all of that is going to go. I don't think anyone does. But again, it just really so simply depends on how you look at it. And the more you're attached to things looking a certain way and some specific thing being positive, the more it's going to hurt when that's pulled out of your hands. It's like holding on a rope really tight, and then something is pulling it like really strong, and the more
Like a
tight,
truck.
like a truck or like a plane. And like the more you hold on to that rope, the more it's going to burn your hands when you're holding on it, right? So it's like, even if it's a great opportunity, when you attach the opportunity for what, you're still holding on a rope that's being pulled. So if you just let go of there even being the opportunity for what, and just be open to like be the space for whatever wants to emerge, then there's a lot of beauty that can happen in anything. And I can say that as somebody who's been through periods of homelessness and depression and being nearly killed and left in the desert to die in Argentina, and had multiple near-death experiences and like totaled cars and motorbikes, and had a lot of like adverse experiences. And I can say that every single one, as soon as I stepped back enough, became the best thing that could ever happen to me. So I'm gonna stay in that space as far as society goes as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I'm gonna ask you maybe a couple of questions. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Um, if you could do anything in the world tomorrow outside of your coaching business, you could do anything in the world tomorrow, what would it be?
Oh, you got me with that one. Um, like professionally, or
Mm-mm. Just anything.
I I would still coach. Um,
If that was not an option, it's not an option. You can't do it. Just
Not
for
even
one day. Just for one day.
business, just like friends and family.
Correct.
Okay. Uh, get get my ass out in nature for a little bit and surf. Um, just spend the day surfing and hiking.
Nice. Nice. What would you say if you had to pinpoint like one, maybe not the most pivotal, but like the first thing that comes to mind that was just an incredibly like soul shattering, soul moving experience that you've had? What would it be?
The most recent breakup I've been through, definitely soul shattering. I was worse than any of my other near death experiences. Felt like my heart was being ripped out of my chest. And it was also the first time I've actually let myself feel something. So I think things just get intensely amplified when you're feeling for the first time in your life.
Damn, that's huge. And I don't even know where to go with that. Like that. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's like super vulnerable and incredible to hear someone say, because I feel like and that also I think speaks to the level of work that you do, the body of work that you do, right? Because as humans, we're taught from such a young age to not feel and to not like or to not stay in the feelings for too long, right? Or to, create some semblance of what we think safety is or might be or could be around feelings and not feeling. So
Yeah.
that's that's
Yeah.
epically beautiful and tragic at the same time.
Yeah, definitely the most beautiful experience of my life for sure. And it's interesting what was unraveled inside of me. And yeah, and this is very vulnerable to share. I had this I'm almost gonna say like love addiction, like validating myself through different relationships, right? So um I noticed what I've noticed within this most recent one was so I've been nomadic for over 10 years now. So I switched places and switched people and switched friendships. And, there were moments when I went to the Amazon, for example, when I just decided I'm not going to talk to anyone because I need to be deep on my spiritual journey right now. Cut ties with everyone. And I used to do that quite a lot. I would make a friend circle and like made some like intimate partnerships and then just leave it all. Found a new place. And there was so much grief that was never being felt. And then I got into a serious relationship, got married, got out of that relationship. The next day went into a different relationship. So I just never let myself feel the actual grief. So when that one ended, I actually stayed with my mentor, Judith, in North Carolina. And she's 83 years old, one of the pioneers in somatics. And it was just me and her in the middle of the woods. She's got like a little house in suburbs of Hillsborough, which is already like a small little thing. So yeah, I was just like, now, and God was like, now you just fucking sit there. And like you're gonna feel all of it. Not just this one, but you're gonna feel
All of it.
all of it. And I was like, oh no. And Judith was, and I remember like when I realized like what's happening right now, and my partner just left, like she booked a ticket, and a few days later she was gone. And I was like, oh no, like where do I go? What do I do? And I started looking at flight tickets, like where can I be that I'm around people? And I was like, oh, I'm trying to distract again. I was like, what would happen if I just let myself be with all of this? It was the most painful and the most beautiful experience of my entire life, just being with all parts of it.
Kudos to you because that shit is not easy. It is not easy, right? Like when we go through that death and rebirth cycle, whatever the cycle looks like for us, but anytime you go through that, especially if you've got a bunch of backed up, it's like you've been through the airport 7 times and every time like they kept your luggage and you just bought new luggage and all of a sudden they give you all the bags at once, right? Here you go. And you're like, oh fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and then also just being blessed by elder and a pioneer in somatics, being there with me. So I got to the very like core of like that abandonment wound, the very core of like why I kept like seeking and chasing and like the addiction to personal development, the addiction to growth, the addiction to relationships. All of that just got like really shown to me and like was able to get into those memories of like, oh, wow, in this like in actually this very house that I'm in right now and like the memories from when I was a child. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much. On that note, I think we will end for this session. Is there any last parting words that you would have to, I know people love to say like, what would you say to your younger self? Or you can say to whoever you want, but like any last parting words?
Love and light, y'all.
For
um,
anyone who made it to this point, you're welcome.
um, yeah, if anybody is really curious or like interested and want to connect, like seriously, just send me a message and connect. Like I love social media for that. That's how Julie and I met as well. Was just reach out and say like, hey, I really enjoyed that and want to connect. And
Yeah. Absolutely. And that was also like I remember going onto your Instagram and be like, who is this fucker? Like, who is this dude? Right. And like checking it out. And I'm like, man, he's got a pretty decent following. I'm like, what's he doing asking me? Like, what's up? Right. I'm just like, so it was pretty awesome. Like you're so down to earth, you're so personable. You're an incredible human. So how can people find you and what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
yeah, probably Instagram. It's JAKOBGRICAR.
Slower, slower.
JAKOB. So Jacob with a K and GRICAR.
And I will make sure that I post that in the show notes and anything else that you want me to post in the show notes. Yeah. So
Perfect.
thank you so much for being on with me. And until next time, have a good one.